Disney's first full-length animated film after World War II was a rags-to-riches story of a young girl who was walked all over by her stepfamily, transforming into a princess suitable for Prince Charming himself. Walt Disney has stated that Cinderella transforming into her ball gown is one of his favorite pieces of animation to come out of his studio. Cinderella's transformation ball gown has been recreated time and time again, so grab some tea and let's discuss how this dress has evolved from the silver gray dress and black choker in the 1950s to the waterfall of ruffles that danced its way across our movie screens in the 2015 live-action adaptation of Cinderella. Our story begins with an animation studio struggling to stay afloat. They need something that's not only going to bring them back from financial disparity, but they need to be able to create it at a low cost. Thus brings us the live-action Cinderella movie that nobody has ever actually seen. As a means to save money on throwing out unwanted scenes, Walt and the 9 old men decided on hiring actors to act out the script in full costume to help inform them how certain scenes would come together and to solve problems like camera angles, facial expressions, and specifically how Cinderella's ball gown moves in that dance sequence. Helen Stanley brought Cinderella to life, and it was said that she wore 2 versions of the transformative ball gown. One for the enchanted coach scene, and another for the ballroom dance, both said to be made with reflective materials. Cinderella's original design was influenced by French gowns from the late 18th century and the sleeveless fashions of 1940s Hollywood, with simple details that allowed the beauty of Cinderella's personality to take the stage. The delicate shades of gray were chosen to complement the moonlight hues of the Bippity Boppity Boo sequence, as well as Cinderella's dance with Prince Charming. Animator Mark Davis said, "In seeing Cinderella's ball gown, it is more than just a costume fit for a princess. It is a symbol that despite how difficult the world may be, there are always possibilities that we ourselves can rise above and transform." Cinderella became the 3rd highest grossing film of 1950 and was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, pulling Disney Animated Studios out of their $4 million slum and funding the next several projects Walt had up his sleeve. You might call it a complete transformation. In 2005, there was a 2-disc Platinum Edition DVD release for the 55th anniversary of the original release. At this time, merchandising changed Cinderella's ball gown from silver to the baby blue color we recognize it as today. In fact, Cinderella in the Disney parks, dresses sold at the store, even dolls are all made in this blue hue. It was thought that this blue was because it stood out more on the shelves of a toy store, and thus the great debate. Is Cinderella's dress silver or blue? Let me know what you think in the comments below as we move on to Roger and Hammerstein's many versions of Cinderella. First, we had the beloved Dame Julie Andrews in the 1957 made-for-TV adaptation of Cinderella. Julie Andrews wore 2 versions of the famous transformation ball gown, one which was photographed for publicity prior to the telecast, which was your typical tulle ball gown. It was said that this dress weighed so much and was very cumbersome for the dancing scene, which led them to the simpler white sleeveless dress that she actually wore for the broadcast. In the publicity dress, you can see the off-the-shoulder cap sleeve reminiscent of the animated film, and you can see how the tulle skirt creates the wide shape of Cinderella's skirt. But they did leave out the gather hip pieces in the skirt. For the bodice, they added a beautiful gold detail on the neckline and the sleeve, as well as beadwork over the majority of the bodice. In this version of the dress, they chose not to give her gloves, but you'll see, in the actual film version, the gloves have returned and the silhouette has disappeared. I think this gown does absolutely nothing for Julie Andrews, and if I didn't know better, I would not know that this dress is supposed to be any semblance of Cinderella. From the shape to the sleeves and even the drapey sash bits, it just leaves me wanting so much more. And then in 1997, Brandy, Normwood, Whitney Houston, and Whoopi Goldberg gave me that dress that I desperately desired. This was actually the first version of Cinderella I ever saw, and aside from Ever After, this was the only version of Cinderella I knew until the 2005 DVD release. In this revolutionary adaptation of Cinderella, costume designer Ellen Mirajnik chose to create the transformation ball gown in a light blue, kind of like the color Disney merchandising chose for their Cinderella products. I knew I wanted a peplum. I knew I wanted the shape of the shoulder and the bodice to be particular. And I knew I wanted the shape of the big, beautiful skirt, says Ellen. I absolutely love this dress. I feel like the peplum is a really creative way to express the gathered hip pieces, but with a more modern vibe. I also loved the off-the-shoulder structure bodice with the dangly seed beads and the tulle overlay. The volume of the tulle skirt is reminiscent of late 1940s Christian Dior, and the glitter tulle on the top layer creates a magical feeling as Brandy dances across the screen. Now, let's move on to Once Upon a Time. In the first season of Once Upon a Time, we are presented with Cinderella. Eduardo Castro designed the costumes for the show, and he said this about designing Cinderella. You have to be true to the iconic. Cinderella, for example, the iconic blue, of course, important. We remained true to the silhouette. We just made it our own a little bit. I'm a bit underwhelmed with this version of Cinderella. Sure, it's a fitted bodice and big floofy dress, but if it wasn't for her hair and the satin gloves, I'm not exactly sure I see very much of Cinderella in this ball gown. In 2014, Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods was brought to the silver screen, and with its long list of fairy tale characters includes Cinderella. In this story, Cinderella is one of many characters who learns to be careful what she wishes for, and her ball gown dress is presented in quite a different way. Colleen Atwood stated, "I used gold in her costume because it was a lot of night work. I wanted her to flutter in the woods and look like a butterfly wing when she ran. I had this gold lame fabric that I used for her costume that did just that with the low light." I actually love this approach to Cinderella's ball gown. When I think of a butterfly's wing, I think about a delicate strength. The wings are strong in that they literally allow the butterfly to fly, and yet they're so thin and delicate they can be crushed quite easily. This also resonates with the glass slippers. They're somehow strong enough for Cinderella to dance on them all night, but when it falls to the ground while trying it on at the end of the animated film, it breaks. When I see this dress, I don't see Cinderella right away. But when I move past the color of the dress, I can start to see the design elements, like the cap-style sleeve, fitted bodice that comes to a point in the center front, the gathered fabric on the hips. None of this is traditional Cinderella, but I would say that it has this essence of Cinderella, and I like that. Finally, we have come to the last costume on our list, Sandy Powell's Waterfall of Ruffles from the 2015 live-action Cinderella. Sandy Powell wanted to create a dress that was light and simple, despite how large it actually is. A gown that was like 1940s, 1950s, does 19th century. And she wanted to create it to look like a watercolor in motion. All of these things are successfully mastered with over 10,000 Swarovski rhinestones, 270 yards of fabric, and 8 different dresses worn and used in the film. She had a very distinct vision for Cinderella, and while I still have issues that she created a blue dress, thus continuing the notion that Cinderella's dress was blue when Mark Davis has said numerous times it's a silvery gray, it is still a beautiful work of art. The engineering in this dress alone is worth its weight in gold. The use of lightweight material in blues and purples layered to create a watercolor effect is absolutely incredible. And the weight distribution of all the fabric really sells the big, floofy, cloud-like dress dream. Powell stated that she watched the animated film not for inspiration, but out of curiosity, and that as she was designing her Cinderella dress, she noticed similarities, and that actually helped her balance iconography with originality. You can see the off-the-shoulder fitted bodice similarities, the puffiness of the Bertha, the silhouette of the dress, but it's still unique and sets itself apart from the animated dress, which I think is what should be expected from a live-action interpretation of a classic movie. If you would like to know even more about the design elements of Sandy Powell's dress, Mae Designs has 2 videos on the design and has started an entire series replicating this dress, which is absolutely fascinating. So, which is your favorite version of Cinderella's dress? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, remember to have courage and be kind.